Alright, this is Sage Wanderer, and welcome to my van down by the river. So I thought I would make a video about November 4th. We're getting closer and closer to the date. Tick tock, tick tock. And I thought I would talk about the worst and best case scenarios for November 4th. So the best case scenario, let's get that out of the way first. Best case scenario, these guys can't raise up a good mob in any of these cities. And due to the heightened tensions and fear of retaliation from the right, that these people just can't pull it off. And they come out and they protest and they have their little mad fit, and then everything goes away. God, I'd love for that to be the case. It's one of those times when I absolutely hope that I am wrong about all of this. So, that out of the way, I don't think that's very likely. And I will say this, as I lay out this worst case scenario, I don't think that that's very likely either. But we can't look on the bright side without looking on the dark side as well. So let's look at worst case scenario. So today is Saturday, the big party night before Halloween. And in previous videos, I've talked about how I believe, and a lot of people are talking about how they also believe, that if this is going to be a big deal, a real-life revolution, then it's probably going to get a jump start on Halloween. Just by the nature of the holiday and the fact that people will be gathered together and that targets will be everywhere and running around with a mask on is acceptable and normal. So I don't know that they'll wait till Halloween Day. It's in the middle of the week, and everyone knows that tonight is the big Halloween night. Do you have a Halloween party you're going to tonight? You might want to keep your eyes and ears stitched wide open. So, worst case scenario. I think in a worst case scenario situation, we're looking at not just an Antifa uprising, not just a communist uprising from the grassroots level, but rather a coming out and an active attack by communists that are filtered and spread out all through our government. And that we could see government actions and government entities rising up against one another. If this is the case, let's say Robert Mueller decides to, come out with the results of his investigation, and they are very much against Donald Trump and very much contrived and very much part of the overall plan. That's a huge assumption. A lot of people have a lot of good things to say about Robert Mueller. A lot of people say that, like when they hired him, they said that his reputation was sterling and above reproach. I'm not sure I feel that way about him in recent times. A lot of information has come to light about him. If he is a deep state mole, if he is a plant as part of an overall plot to overthrow our government, then his findings could spark things to explode overnight. That there could be literally battles between government entities, attempts potentially at Donald Trump's life or the arrest of members of his cabinet. They might move against, this is worst case scenario now, I'm not saying this is going to happen, just saying that, it's within the realm of possibility. That they could move against major personalities such as Roger Stone and Alex Jones and Sean Hannity. That there could be KGB-style arrest of political enemies across the board coming from the deep state. God, I hope not. If that's the case, then our country was way more rotten to the core than even I thought. But it could happen. Any type of activity like that, any kind of instability in the government at the highest levels, the net result would be to leave the local law enforcement completely without any federal backup or even any federal attention from what might happen from Antifa and Refuse Fascism and the revolutionary abolitionist movement and the different socialist, communist, radical groups that are kind of banding together. One of the big questions is, will BLM, Black Lives Matter, participate with the communists in this mass protest? Now, I've seen members of the African American community, a lot of them, more voices that are going to give you this point of view than others that are going to be pro-Antifa. That, in fact, Black Lives Matter, many of the African Americans that I have seen that are talking about November 4th are telling you, don't participate. It's a trap. don't buy into the communist revolution, they don't care about us. This isn't about Black Lives Matter on November 4th. November 4th is about something else. And I think they're wise to say that. And I'm glad to hear those voices of reason coming from the African American community. However, what if they do? Then that's just another element in this whole thing. If they're able to raise a large group, then you could see mass protests and local law enforcement having to deal with this without any federal backup. It may not even be possible for the National Guard to be utilized if they are busy dealing with an overall general coup against our government at the highest levels. Once again, worst case scenarios. Now, one of my favorite movies is the original Red Dawn movie. And one of the pieces of fact, I think, that came out of the storyline on that movie is, and my dad being a Marine Corps trainer of guerrilla forces back in the day, I totally believe that the power of one military trainer in a group of untrained individuals is profound. And in the movie Red Dawn, you can see what the one military expert who crashed his airplane and landed in their camp did for that small group of rebels, how that he was able to organize them into a significant fighting force. So if these type of military trainers have in fact been working with members of Antifa and the revolutionary abolitionist movement, then one might expect them to be way more effective than you thought. Then there's the whole other idea, which I've covered in previous videos, about crack troops of mercenaries and foreign, maybe Russian or Chinese or North Korean Marines being smuggled in across the southern border and into our country, and that they are waiting in the wings to, at the key moment, strike against our infrastructure. Which brings me to another point that has arisen in the last few days. And if you're not familiar with the idea that every time there is some kind of government drill about some specific kind of event, then ironically within 48 hours of the training scenario, the event takes place. There was active shooter drills in Las Vegas the day of the shooting. There were drills on 9/11, or the days leading up to 9/11. There were drills in London dealing with mass bombing events right before the bombing at the Ariana Grande concert that killed so many young girls and their families. And so, or affected them at least. All of them were affected that were there. So what we have now is being announced is a nationwide EMP, electromagnetic pulse, or mass corona ejection event that would take out the power grid. And how would civilian organizations like hospitals and law enforcement communicate with the federal forces and the federal government? This is scheduled to take place on the 4th, the 5th, and the 6th. In a previous video, I talked about how if Antifa were going to come to your neighborhood, and honestly, I think I talked about this before the November 4th thing was ever announced. I've been talking about this before before anybody else was. I was calling it the Purge and talking about it clear back in August. And, you know, I've been aware of the Purge really since the early days of summer. And, yeah. So, at any rate, what if these drills are because they know something? And I talked about in a previous video how easy it is to take out a substation or transformers and black out sections of cities. And one of the things I talked about in one of my Purge videos early on, I make so many videos, I can't tell you which one it was, but you've probably seen it if you're a fan of the channel and seen my videos, where Antifa could knock out neighborhoods and then go in the dark and attack neighborhoods for the purpose of stealing guns, money, vehicles, gold, property, cash. And they would do this by knocking the lights out. So this drill makes me think that the government thinks that there very well could be blackouts on November 4th. Intentional blackouts on the night of the 4th or the 5th. And I'm especially concerned with 12 o'clock midnight on November 5th, 4th into 5th. And once again, this ties back to the V for Vendetta movie when his big attacks happened at 12 o'clock at the turning from November 4th to November 5th. In other words, the very first moments of November 5th. So in a worst case scenario, we've got at least citywide, regionally wide, statewide, or even nationwide power outages that could occur as a part of this communist plot. We are so dependent upon electricity that if the power grid went down, it would be chaotic and a lot of people would not know how to function. So in a worst case scenario, you've got a government coup that happens at the highest level. You've got infighting between, literal gunfights going on between the alphabet soups, both pro and anti-Trump forces. You've got a grassroots, ground level terrorist activities being perpetrated by trained and untrained Antifa and left-wing radicals of various sorts, along with attacks and terrorist moves and potentially moves against law enforcement organizations by paid mercenaries who George Soros may or may not have hired to go on the 4th or the 5th. And the very fact that the government thinks there could be blackouts makes me think there's probably going to be blackouts in a worst case scenario. Now, I'm not saying all this to scare you. I gave you the best case scenario first. That's the one we can all hope for. Hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. In the event of nationwide blackouts in the form of an EMP or a failure of the power grid, you better have your personal survival plans in place, because it really won't be about war for most people at that point. It will be about eating, drinking, and staying sheltered. And yeah, if it's an EMP, then even your radios don't work. Your car won't start unless it's older and unless you've taken some protective measures. And unless you have Faraday cages with your walkie-talkies and your shortwave radio in them, then if an EMP happens, or a CFE, I think that's CFE, the mass coronal ejection, if any of that happens, then all of those devices are forever worthless. I hope that the worst case scenario does not occur. And I'm fairly certain that probably all of these things that I'm talking about won't happen all at once. I can only pray to God that they won't. But likewise, I don't think the best case scenario is going to happen either. And like all things, I think the truth lies somewhere in the middle. Stuck in the middle with you. That's where I'm at. Stuck in the middle of all of this with you. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that the trolls get to ha ha ha. You're such fearmonger. Look, none of that stuff came true. Look at you. You're just a fool. This is one of those times in life where I hope I'm the fool. I would celebrate it. We'll have a little fool's party. I'll wear a fool's hat. We'll blow up the little noisemakers, and yeah, I never drink, but I'll sit down and have a drink to being wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I wanted you to be aware as time ticks down and we grow closer to this ominous date of what could happen, and share with you my hopes of what I think might happen, I wish would happen. But in reality, it'll be somewhere in the middle. I want to put a special thanks and show gratitude to all of my subscribers. I started this channel really as a personal video diary, and I never expected anybody to even look at it. And so yeah, this is an unexpected success. We've got over 3,000 subscribers to the channel now, and I'm already planning some kind of special silliness, because apparently when you get to certain benchmarks like 5,000 subscribers, people do something silly like eat hot peppers or something weird. So I don't know. We're talking about what I might do to celebrate and show my gratitude for the 5,000 subscriber mark. And I've been told that this channel is taking off in a way that is kind of unprecedented, that most channels don't grow this fast. So thank you. Thank all you guys for paying attention and watching. And what started as a lark is now beginning to be kind of a part-time job for me. And I really hope that I can live up to all of your expectations. So thanks once again, and God save the Republic.